is our really inspiring guest today. Her name is Evanna Lynch, and a lot of people are familiar with it. Most people will recognize her as the very gentle-souled Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter film series. But, and we're going to talk about all this today, she's accomplished so much more in both her acting career and her activism. Evanna has appeared in films, stage productions, and also done voiceover for characters, in addition to also placing third on Dancing with the Stars, which I am so impressed with. She hosts the Chick Peeps podcast, which also advocates for a vegan lifestyle, and she started a vegan subscription box business called Kinder Beauty. So, and I also want to mention she's got an adorable cat called Puff. So if you want to see Puff, go to Evanna's Instagram page. Welcome all the way from London, Evanna Lynch, to the Switch for Good podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's really kind. Very nice introduction. And you've got my name pronunciation right, which Americans rarely do. So, good one.
What do Americans? Woo! My mother's British. Well, that must be why.
Oh, is that why? Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Well, people just don't pronounce the E. They say Ivana, but you just said it perfectly. Yeah. So I don't really care, but it's just, it reminds me of home when I hear people say it right.
Well, that's very typical of we Americans to sort of slur things. And actually, in terms of names, Ivana, I want to say that, I'm Alexandra. My sister is Caroline. My brother is Jonathan. My mother is British. We were always called by our full names. But Americans, they just love to shorten it. Alex, John, Caro. And I just cannot be, as Dotsie knows, I cannot stand to be called Alex.
I remember asking you.
Really?
Because I thought you were just like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. And you were like, no, it's Alexandra. I was like, ooh, shoot. Okay. I got to really pay attention. Sometimes in my own notes, I call you Alex to myself.
Oh, well, I get a hold of those notes. So, Ivana, I want to, I was on Baywatch for 5 seasons 25 years ago. And I am very well aware that on my gravestone, they will mention Baywatch, even though, I've had an acting career of over 35 years and over 100 productions. You also have that same, whether it's a burden or actually a point of pride, Harry Potter will always be linked to you also. And I know there's a lot of Harry Potter fans listening to this show, so I don't want to disappoint them. Can you tell us how you came to audition and get the part of Harry Potter?
Yeah, totally.
I'm sorry, of Luna Lovegood.
Luna Lovegood.
Yes.
right. All together. Yeah. How cool would that be? No. And by the way, I totally appreciate what you're saying. And I so get it. It is strange to have something kind of that you are proud of, something that I love. I was a huge Harry Potter fan before I got the part of Luna, but it is strange. The other day I did an Instagram live and people were like, "You've changed," and it's like, yeah, I was 14. I was like literally half my life ago when I got that role. So I think with things like Harry Potter and just anything that has a huge fan following, there's like a sense of nostalgia where people kind of want to freeze you in time at that moment so that they can always return to it. And it's odd, it's strange, but I just try. I kind of see it as like that's their business. It's nothing to do with me. And yeah, I'm still very proud of Harry Potter. As for getting the part, I was 14 at the time, and I lived in Ireland, as I'm from Ireland. Not from any type of acting family, but I was really quite big into acting because I was really shy when I was younger, but I was the kind of shy where I didn't want to be shy. I wanted to connect with people and express and be part of stories. Really, I would watch movies and I would want to be in the thick of it, and so I joined a drama class when I was quite young, and then and that kind of connected with my obsession with Harry Potter. I would be reading the fan sites every day, and one day an open audition for this character came along, this character who I absolutely loved, and I had to beg my mum and dad to bring me because it was in London, and like this was back, when was this? 2006. Like, it was a big deal to get on a plane at 14. It was just like you had to ask your mom's permission and everything. And my mom didn't want me to go because she was like, oh no, she should focus on school. And it will ruin Harry Potter for her if she doesn't get it, which she probably won't. And but my dad was like, let's just do it, take a chance. And yeah, he brought me to this open audition, and that's kind of how that all started.
But there were 15,000 other Harry Potter fans in line also auditioning. Is that correct?
Apparently. Didn't count them. But yeah, there was a lot of people. Yeah.
What do you remember about that audition that you now know maybe convinced them that you were the one?
I mean, I remember every detail of that day pretty much. It was a big deal. And I think I just, so as I said, I was quite a shy person. I wasn't good at connecting with new people or making a big impression. And I generally would get nervous about going out and having to meet people. Even just like answering the phone, I was that kind of person. I was just anxious. But with this, I was so certain of who the character was. I just really loved her, and I really had a very clear idea of who she would be, and I wanted to honor that. And having that kind of sense of purpose, and it not being about me, it being about the character, that made me relaxed, and it made me, just having a purpose. And I find that actually the same thing with vegan activism, when it's something I'm sure about, even though I don't particularly like putting myself out there and, potentially really annoying some people. I know I'm right. I have that sense of purpose, and that helps me get out there anyway. So I think that's what it was, that I came into this audition not wanting to impress them or please them. Yes, I did, of course, subconsciously, but more being like, I know who this character is. And I think the casting director reminded me that I'd said that to them at the time. If you don't pick me, you're going to be making the wrong choice. And that sounds so arrogant and conceited, but it was just like, I know what I'm meant to do here, and that's all I can do. So I think it was that. I think it was that I came to the audition with ideas, and I couldn't be swayed from who I knew she was at her center. Yeah.
So everybody that's a Harry Potter fan, knows Luna's characteristics and who she is. But who is she to you? Because I'm wondering if it might reveal some more layers to her.
What a nice question. Yeah. She is just pure light to me, and compassion. Whenever I was reading the books when I was younger, several years before the movies and getting the part and everything, I would feel just such a sense of lightness when she would come on the page. I would feel I was in the presence of someone who let me be and didn't judge me, even though she was a fictional character, and had this beautiful open-mindedness. She had this way of like looking at the world and not needing to judge it or compartmentalize it or understand people. She just let them be. And I encountered her at a time in my life where I was really struggling with just very negative thoughts and anxiety and just, I suppose, depression, really. And she was like the antithesis of that. And it was like an invitation into who I wanted to be more like. And yeah, that's kind of what it is. And I think she has this, I think people see her sometimes as like the comic relief in the movie. They see her as a bit silly and ditzy, but I think it's much deeper than that. I think she's very spiritual and like connected to the world, and just feels other people. And she's so secure in herself that she's able to really listen to another person and really take them in a way that is quite difficult when you are consumed with yourself or struggling with yourself. Yeah.
You mentioned struggling with yourself and having some depression and struggles, and we understand that you battled anorexia, and that J.K. Rowling actually helped you overcome it. And this was before you auditioned for the show. Can you tell us that story? We thought it was fascinating, and we also want to go deeper into your eating disorder, because both Dotsie and I have had eating disorders, and part of this show is about that too when it comes up.
Yeah, and healing from addiction.
Yeah. I think so many people have, so many, especially like sensitive women, because it's like it's numbing, isn't it? It's really hard to accept yourself and just kind of go along without anything. And you know, people talk about this with things like addiction. It turns down the volume on yourself or on your feelings, and yeah, that's what that was for me. It just kind of and I think for a lot of people, I'm sure you felt, you know, maybe went through it the same way, that it just comes to you. It just happens. It's not something you try at. And it's just an easy way of numbing. And you're so consumed with this obsession that you don't have to feel your feelings. And you don't have to do anything big or daring because it's just this one solitary thing in your life. And so, yeah, I was really, I was actually in hospital when the Order of the Phoenix came out, and that's when I met the character of Luna. And there was things like that that really woke me up to, I actually don't want to live like this. This is such a lifeless, worthless way to live. And it's such a fearful way to live. So yeah, it was those books and that character that those were a few things that really woke me up to yeah, how pointless my life was when I had an eating disorder. And so I wrote to J.K. Rowling, and I was in therapy. I had like lots of different means of support, but I wrote to her, and I, you know, just to thank her, just to say, this is the one thing that makes me stop thinking of this obsessive cycle. And I didn't think she'd write back. You know, I just wanted to literally just express thanks and put that out there. And somehow I sent it to her publishers, and they forwarded her mail to her, and somehow she got the letter, read the letter, and connected with it. And yeah, she wrote to me for years. She wrote to me while I was like in and out of treatment centers, and she was just, you know, I think that my story has been quite sensationalized by the media, as in like J.K. Rowling wrote to you and you got better, and it's so I think it's really irresponsible to paint it like that, because you can never get better for someone else, even freaking J.K. Rowling. You know, like I had the person who I idolized most in the world writing to me and encouraging me, but I was still going in and out of treatment centers, and I was still trying to recover and then relapsing, and, you know, disappointing J.K. Rowling. And it just, you can't, it has to be, it's your own journey. It has to be that you find a way to do it and that you follow that path. And, you know, I was so grateful for her support, and I owe her so much gratitude for kind of the light that she showed me through that time. So yeah, that was that was our relationship to start with. But it was definitely, as I say, it's been sensationalized in the media, and it wasn't a linear journey to recovery.
Yeah, it's beautiful that you shared that. I know from my own journey, gosh, it really resonates, the numbing out. I mean, that's what I became so addicted to, was that feeling. But in the beginning, when you start restricting food intake, for me anyway, I mean, I didn't know that it was going to be that. I just was trying to assert some kind of control over my life that felt out of control at the time. And then I became very addicted to that feeling you describe. What were the complexities for you that you were experiencing that even had you start restricting food even the first time? Because you don't know yet that you're going to be able to numb out so severely.
It was when I was 11, and I think that's the age where a lot of people suddenly become very aware of themselves, and that they have to find out who they are. And, you know, you're at that point in your life where it's like people are asking you, like, who are you? What are you going to do with your life? And you kind of feel like this blob and you're just like, I don't know. My mom and dad will tell you. And that struggle really stressed me out. And I was quite a misfit as a kid. I was very creative, and I dressed quite weird. I dressed in really crazy clothes, and like there was a combination of being really sensitive but really creative and not having anywhere to fit in. And yeah, feeling at school or at the drama classes I was going to in my family. And I was the third third daughter. I've a brother who's younger, but I was the third daughter. So it's just like, I wasn't able to define myself. My sisters were straight A students, the smart ones. They were kind of doing everything first. And it was a real crisis of identity. It was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know how I will succeed in this world. I don't know how I'll find love outside of kind of the safe, warm, closeted existence of family, of my mom loving me. And I wanted to find something that would give me an edge and that would make me feel special or make me feel like I had worth. And, that quickly and unintentionally became the eating disorder stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a boy who I say that I was too fat. And I think mine started very physically. I didn't, or at least that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if I had some confidence, I would have just kicked him in the balls.
Yeah, I'd like to go. Do we know where he is?
Yeah.
I got strong legs.
Actually, I do.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was accumulation of things. I was obviously vulnerable, but I didn't. Mine started very much for like physical reasons, and then it became a way to cope.
Mm-hmm.
Because I relied
to cope.
Yeah, but I also, because as a young girl, you care about if a young man whom you have a crush on. I mean, I was a little older than you. I was 14 when it started surfacing. It has an impact, and you want to please and be who boys want. Oh God.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like, it's perfection, isn't it? That's one thing that's certain. If you just keep on, working on yourself, you think you'll achieve perfection, and everything else is so unsure. I think your school and your career and relationships, whether people like you, I see it as like a safe thing, but I also see it as a cowardly thing to just pursue perfection that way. And I think that's part of what helps, me in my healing, is that I keep trying, reminding myself that's a cowardly way to live, and it's a very small way to live, and I don't want to be like that. Yeah.
Do you remember throughout your recovery, and I'm sure it was a rocky road, they're never just straight, to recovery in and out of the treatment centers and therapy. Do you remember when a light started to turn on, when you felt like, I am going to see the other side of this?
Yeah, I think I'm laughing, I'll tell you why, but there were a few things. There were things like literally like reading the Harry Potter books and meeting Luna, and things that I was like, oh, I want to be like someone like J.K. Rowling, who's not defined by her image or perfection or anything, who's beautiful, but that's not her thing, who's a lot more interesting. But so then I was in this treatment center in London, actually. That was when it was really bad. And I think there were things like, I had a crush on one of the guys in the treatment center. And that really helped me in like towards the end of it, where it was just like, things like that kind of bring you back to life, like love, I suppose. I don't think I was in love with him. I think I had a crush. But I think there were moments of like falling in love with lots of things. There was also an acting teacher who was in that treatment center, and he was really encouraging of me. And it's like, I would fall in love with acting, or I would fall in love with a book, or I would fall in love with a boy. And that would kind of make me loosen my grip on the disorder and not need it as much. So yeah, that I suppose it sounds corny, but love is the thing that sort of pulled me out of it.
No, it doesn't at all. That doesn't at all sound corny. Yeah.
Yeah, you had more going on in your life than just concentrating on food and calories. I think that's really, really important.
And you realize you can't pursue the pursuit of great love when you're really sick.
Yeah.
You just you know that.
Yeah, you can't sustain both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the irony is that a lot of times, like I wanted to please a boy, but actually boys don't like it when girls are super thin. It's only girls that look at being super thin and think it's quote unquote perfection. Guys don't like that. And even, there's even studies that have shown that a lot of men will fantasize about women who are heavier, but they'll want in their life as their partner someone who's smaller, because societally that is more accepted. So they might even be turned on by super heavy obese women, but they would never in their real life admit that. So our idea of what we call perfection is it's totally, there is no such thing, especially when it comes to humans. But it's not going to get us what we become that. We want to be perfect because we want love, but actually in the end, it doesn't get us love.
Mm-hmm.
A very thin woman obsessed with food will never have love, like you learned.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, you point that out. It's like the men are as much a victim of the patriarchy as women are, you know, because it's not like if you really come down to it, it's just money, isn't it? That's why we're made to feel that way, because people don't make money if we're not feeling bad about ourselves, if we're not spending on ways to improve ourselves. If we just accept ourselves, like, capitalism doesn't really thrive.
The whole beauty industry tanks like overnight.
Yeah. So when you decided, when you tell us about your journey with food and in terms of vegetarian or veganism, how did that come up?
Yeah, so I went vegetarian. It was actually probably around the time of my eating disorder, because I was just really thinking about food and reading about food and nutrition. But I'd always loved animals, and we had loads of animals around us. We lived like in the country where there was no bus, so our friends were animals. Our parents just kind of kept buying us cats and dogs and things like that to keep us happy. And so I think when it was very simple when I put it together. I really didn't believe that we had any more right to life than animals. And so I went vegetarian around 10 or 11. And it was like a bit on and off, because when I would go to treatment centers, they would see vegetarian as an eating disorder. They did, you know, a lot of treatments, and I think that's completely wrong, but they will say there's no such thing as good or bad foods, you know, and it's like that's vegetarianism is something entirely different. But I continued with being vegetarian after recovery and everything, and then got quite into like the ethics of it. With just being in the spotlight, I would get approached by different charities, and I started to realize that the thing that really calls to me, the thing that I feel most passionate about, and where I'm actually speaking from the heart, is animal rights. And so I started talking more about that. And that's when people on social media started to say, well, why are you not vegan then? And, you know, I was quite resistant to it at first, because I just thought that's a bit too extreme. That's really crazy. And my mum was very wary of it too. She was like, that does sound like a fancy eating disorder. So she was like, don't go there. But then I actually moved to LA for a few years when I was like 20, and it was just all around me, and in a really positive way. There were so many amazing restaurants and so many vegan activists who were doing it in a way that it didn't seem like they were depriving themselves, and it wasn't about sacrifice, and that just really inspired me. And then I read this book, Eating Animals, by Jonathan Safran Foer, and it was so traumatizing. It was so, I mean, it's brutal, that book. It's such like, it's all about the factory farms and inside of factory farms. And I just couldn't, when I finished that book, I really realized I am already vegan in my sensibilities, you know, ethically, I agree with everything. I'm just not putting it into practice. So I think from when I read that book, I knew I was meant to be vegan. But it just took a while to kind of untangle all my weird feelings around food and to do it in a positive way.
Did you have help with that, or did you navigate that yourself?
I did. I navigated it myself at first. I just kind of plunged in, but I did find it triggered some issues with food, because I was doing it out of like a should feeling, like, oh, I should be doing this, or out of guilt. So every time I would like struggle with cravings, I would be kind of force myself to think about the cows and the chicks being crushed up and things like that. And so meal times were becoming about just misery again, really. It was too emotional. And it wasn't until actually, so I'd been in touch with this guy, Eric Marcus, who runs vegan.com. And I'd been in touch with him on Twitter, and I was saying, look, I'm really struggling with this vegan thing. I don't know if I can do it. And then he told me about the crowding out method, which is, he was like, you know, seeing veganism as what you don't eat is a meat eater's perspective. You need to think of it like a vegan and think about it abundantly and the things you're going to add into your diet and your lifestyle. And he said, before you cut anything out, just start adding in plant-based variations. And over time, you'll find that those animal products will fall out of your life. And that is exactly what happened. And I didn't feel like I was giving something up. It felt like a very willing choice, and it felt abundant. And I would honestly go so far as to say it really finally fully healed my weird relationship with food, because I had already recovered, but that was kind of the last thing that made me stop seeing it as sort of an enemy. Yeah.
And what was that? Was that because you had sort of there was a higher meaning to food?
Definitely. That's exactly what it was. That it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about calories or aesthetics. It was about, I'm doing this because this is the kind of person I want to be, and because I love animals, and this represents who I want to be. It was more just like, a piece of myself that had been missing. And yeah, I think by taking my focus off like nutritional content and what they'll do to my body, and putting it on the ethics, it just changed the narrative around food for me. And it was my mum actually who pointed it out a few years later when she came to visit me in LA. She was like, wow, you're really quite normal around food now. You seem to have healed something. And I hadn't noticed. And it was like, yeah, I don't mind. I don't see it as good or bad. It's just either vegan or not vegan. And it's all just food. Yeah. And it's vegan or not vegan. And to me, animals are not food. So that's not even good or bad. It's just not food. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful way to describe it, as a world of abundance. I know that will probably help many of our listeners. I know for me, I feel like every meal that I'm eating, I have so much variety and so much color and so much enjoyment and so much abundance. And when I started describing it to people like that, instead of, well, no, you can't have that. What about this? Well, no, that's an animal. Well, no, and it saying a bunch of no's instead of a lot of yeses. Like, just start bringing it in, and I think your taste buds will start to morph as well, right? And you start to crave what you eat, and then it's just a pretty quick journey then to just taking the rest of the stuff out.
Exactly. Yeah. And they completely do. I had that. So I didn't mention this, but I was actually a vegetarian who did not like vegetables. I ate really badly, actually. I ate a lot of breakfast cereal, a lot of pasta, bit of fruit, a lot of chocolate. And I didn't realize I was unhealthy, but I would get a lot of colds and flus. And then when I went vegan, my hair started to grow, which had never happened before because I'd bleached it when I was young, but my hair got healthy. I stopped getting all these infections and my skin cleared up. And it's just like, yeah, you don't realize until you do it. And I mean, yeah, I'm kind of going on, but it was all these things I didn't realize, and actually just going vegan seemed to fix a lot of things with my health.
It's like lots of powerful side effects.
A lot of male activists can be very black and white. They can go vegan overnight. I don't think they have as much of a emotional relationship with food, and so I don't see them talking about it as much. And I think it is important. I think food is such a personal thing. It's tied into your cultural identity and everything. It's your connection to your family. So I think we have to be vegan. I really do. I think we have to keep going and move towards vegan, but also know that it's going to be hard to untangle that relationship with food, and you have to find a positive way to do it. Because if you're going to eat at least 3 times a day, 4 or 5 times a day, it has to be enjoyable. It has to be nice. It can't be out of I'm giving this up, or I'm no longer going to eat one of my favorite things because it's cruel. You have to find a way to reframe it in a positive way. And I think that's the way to do veganism. But yeah, I really wish more people would talk about that link, because I think it's important.
I watched the PETA PSA that you did about kind of behind the scenes of animal testing. And it was so good. It was so spot on. You were so good in it. Yeah. Imagine that. You were a great actress. I mean, you were so playful and funny and fun loving. And you just, a lot of times when people press play on a PETA PSA, you're like, Like, I was so engaged. I thought, oh, I want to see what she's going to say next, or what's going to happen, or how they're going to describe.
But your
this next.
timing was so good. Dotsie and I were timing. I mean, you truly are an excellent actress. I encourage anyone just to go see, because your timing is spot on with your reactions. So
yeah,
and it is
it's probably easy for people to Google. So this is obviously another area of animal issues that you feel really passionate about, animal testing. And we definitely want to go into talking about Kinder Beauty that you have with actress Daniela Monet. But what kind of brought you into this world? You do food. You recognize, okay, if I love them, it doesn't include eating them. So you go from there. And then when did you and why did you start kind of going down that road of understanding what happens behind closed doors for vanity, really, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's definitely been a journey. Before I get into that, I would recommend, if any of your listeners haven't, if they don't really know about animal testing, to read a book called Free the Animals by Ingrid Newkirk. Oh God, it was a very hard-hitting. We actually read it over the summer in the Chick Peeps, my podcast. We have a book club, and I'd always thought factory farming was the worst, the biggest scourge on earth. And it really is. To me, it kind of is hell on earth. But I really actually think animal testing is worse. I think actually those animals are just in such abject suffering and misery every day. And they're so lonely and isolated. And they're in these cages. And I won't go on. I'm sure your listeners are aware. But yeah, I think it's a really horrible issue. And it's kind of dismissed. It's not, because it's convenient to. And I found, so when I went vegan, obviously you go vegan with everything. You do your food and your wardrobe and your makeup. And I was really into beauty. I love beauty. I think it's such a lovely thing. I think it brings joy to people's lives. And it's something as a woman that I like decorating myself or doing myself up. It kind of is a self-love practice. And to me, animal testing is just so the opposite of beauty. And it's a horrible reality we live in, that those two worlds have collided, that most mainstream beauty brands rely on animal testing to get their products out there. And I think I just have noticed, everyone with food, it's one thing. People will be like, and I want my meat, or I don't have that connection with animals. But with beauty, I think everyone's like, yeah, animal testing is horrific. It's almost unanimous agreement. I don't think there's anyone who's like, no, you know what? I feel better when my lipstick is just, tested on these cowering little bunnies in cages. So I noticed that, there's this discordancy between what people believe and what they want to do and what they actually do. That they'll say, I want to be cruelty-free, but then they want something like a toothpaste or a conditioner or whatever, and they run down to the shop. And if they want to be cruelty-free, they basically have to have a physics degree and really understand things on a deep level. They have to get really nerdy about it. So I think I got really passionate about it then, of like, we have to make this easy. We have to because everyone, we already have them agreeing with us that animal testing is wrong and it's archaic and it actually isn't very scientific. It's not applicable science. So we just need to make it easy and make it seem as fun and beautiful as, unfortunately, the mainstream beauty industry have done a job on with, products that have been tested on animals. It really is the best marketing in the world, that they bring you these fabulous, shiny, glowing products that seem to epitomize luxury and, I don't know, just living the good life. And at the end of it, there's a vulnerable animal who nobody knows, who nobody loves, and they're suffering for it. So that's why I got really passionate about it. And I just think if we just make it easy for people, they will go cruelty free.
Yeah. Now, just wanted to ask a question about England, because I know the EU and England is no longer part of the EU. So I'm wondering, the EU has disallowed cosmetics that have been tested on animals. Both you can't test it in the EU, nor can you import it, and that goes for Israel, India. I think there's some other countries too. Is England still following that, even though they're not in the EU anymore?
I think it is. I don't actually know the ins and outs of this as much, but it is. But there's too many loopholes. Like maybe the final product won't be tested on animals, but the individual ingredients still can be. So it doesn't mean anything really, that ruling. Um, so I still don't think, if those brands are, listen, if those brands are selling in China for one thing, then no, they're not cruelty free. But also that that ruling isn't very strong. It's not strong enough anyway.
So how do
Yeah.
you vet the cosmetics that you allow into your beauty box? This is something where, for folks who aren't familiar, please explain how the beauty box works, and then tell us what your criteria is for it. How do you decide what goes in? Because there's quite a lot of pressure on you to make sure that it is an ethical product.
Yeah, definitely. So it started with I was friends with Andrew Bernstein, who's one of the co-founders. He worked at PETA, and we worked on it was like a Harry Potter PETA campaign, a video thing we were doing. And then he had this idea that he said, I think there's, opportunity to develop more, a big vegan cruelty-free subscription box. And he connected me and Danielle, and we all had, the important thing was that we were all ethical vegans. Yes, it's a business, but we're doing it because we are trying to change the world for the way we want it to be. We want the industry to reflect our values. We started this company called Kinder Beauty, which is a vegan cruelty-free monthly subscription box. So every month we'll send a box with a few vegan beauty products to people's stores, and it's a way to just like support vegan businesses and educate people on the brands, and just take all the complication out of people's lives for having to do all that research on their own. And obviously it's not perfect, because you still have to, like, you don't get to choose your products every month. And for example, like we're still a small growing company, so we can't select shades for each box. So hopefully eventually we'll get more sophisticated. But yeah, at the moment it's like we send a selection of like five or six products to people every month, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. And selection process is, well, everything has to be vegan. So we have like quite a rigorous questionnaire that we give to every brand before working with them, just so that we can be so sure that that it's vegan. We work with all companies are cruelty free, but some brands are like not fully vegan, but they'll have half their products are vegan, and they're already cruelty free. So that's our criteria. And also we're a clean beauty brand. And clean is less of a like binary term than vegan or cruelty free. Different companies have different set of standards. We have our own. It's all on the website. It's all a lot of scientific terms. It's pretty rigorous too. But yeah, so we have these questions, and then after that, it's just like what we want to see more of, what brands that we love, what we get excited by. And we have like a Facebook group for our subscribers where we kind of canvass them for opinions, or like what is missing from your life, what would you like to see more of. So that's how it goes.
I have to rewind for a second. I know you both know this answer and I don't, and I get asked it and I don't know. So I think people can conceptualize, even though we don't agree with it, animal testing for the new cancer drug, whatever. But for makeup, I don't understand how many more ingredients to a lipstick do we need to be testing? Like, why are they still testing? Mascara is mascara. We've pretty much figured out how to make it black and have your eyelashes go up. And what are they still testing?
That is a good question. And we will ask, because we're going to be having somebody on who specializes in, beauty without cruelty. But there are, how they always have different new, this is going to make your lashes grow longer kind of thing. So I'm assuming but they don't need to. It's true. And that's what Ivana is sort of making a point that for makeup, it's just not worth it. Whatever your arguments are for my kid needs to be safe from cancer, which, as you and I, Dotsie, have talked about, they're products, continuing the paradigm of testing on animals actually holds us back from curing cancer, because we know how to cure cancer in an animal, but not in humans as well. So, but
it might also just be that, like, it's jobs, isn't it? It's a whole huge industry, and maybe there's just an element of they don't want to go out of business, because it is supporting a lot of people. Like, I think I was doing a campaign with Peter recently where there's these owls that are being used in Johns Hopkins University for experiments, which have no scientific basis, and which they have on record the researchers saying this isn't really reliable science, but they're just doing it because, like, they want to get funding or for certain things, or I don't know. I think it might be laziness. I think it might be that it's a whole huge industry that people don't feel like overhauling. I don't know, but yeah, it is definitely a good question.
Ingrid mentioned that when she was on the podcast, as far as the National Institute of Health, right down the street from them in Washington, D.C., and she mentioned something similar. Like, sometimes it just seems like it's just because it's just what they do.
They will grant grants to researchers who've been, for example, there's one at the Oregon Health and Sciences University, I think it's called, but this researcher has been doing studies on alcoholism in monkeys for 20 years. And there are enough alcoholics in the United States or in Oregon that you can use, but no, it's just easier to do this baloney research on innocent animals. So
and it keeps them their jobs. I mean, I think,
but it's the NIH needs to take responsibility
no
too
doubt
for letting these grants go. All this because it's taxpayer money.
All the time. Is China the only country left that requires cosmetic animal testing?
I believe so.
My understanding is, they definitely, so China has evolved, because it used to be that if your product wasn't made, first it was everybody had to test everything before it got into China. So this is why companies like Benefit, which were formerly cruelty-free, started testing, because China is such a big market.
Yeah, right.
So you need to check if you were using a makeup 5 years ago or 10 years ago and you think it's cruelty-free. It might not be now.
Yes, Charlotte Tilbury is no longer cruelty-free as of today.
What's that?
Charlotte Tilbury? Maybe it's not as big in the US.
Oh.
It's a big brand here. Yeah, I know, just thought I'd mention.
Oh,
because they started selling to China as of today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now then China changed its rules a little bit, that if it's manufactured in China, they will allow it to be, the rules are a little less stringent in terms of animal testing, because they want obviously more manufacturing done in China itself. So anyway, it is an evolving thing, but thank you for making makeup easier to get and educating people about.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. So it's fun, and like beauty should be lighthearted and fun and celebratory. It shouldn't be about having to campaign against cruelty, but it still is, and we'll keep doing that. But I would recommend, if anyone wants to know more, I really love the website Logical Harmony. She does really great research. Tashina Coombs is her name. She does great research on just brands that are cruelty free. She updates you if something is no longer cruelty-free, and does investigations, and she writes to all the companies. So yeah, it's a really good resource.
There's also a couple apps. Beauty Without Cruelty has one, and PETA has one, you just have on your phone. And then it's really cool if you're in a store, Sephora or your pharmacy, and you go, I like that makeup. You can just either scan the barcode and it will tell you right away, or you can type in the company and it'll tell you. So it can make things easier.
Great.
And the beauty box, does it come every quarter? Because I'm going to order.
No, every month.
Every month?
Yeah, so it's a lot of products. Ooh. Yeah. But, people should know you can always skip a month. There's always that option. Because I would do that. I mean, I have to test everything for the box. So I have a lot of beauty products. I just have friends over, and I'm like their best friend. I give them all my stuff, all the samples. But yeah, it's a lot. If you're a beauty nerd, it'll be great. If you're somebody who's just likes it and wants to get some moisturizers and top up, you can do it, and then just skip every now and then. It's really flexible.
It looked like you had also an option for just one box too. Is that right?
Yeah.
1 month?
Well, we have like it's the marketplace. It was the holiday shop. It's now the marketplace. So yeah, you can buy like gifts and things like that there.
Oh, wonderful. So you went to India to see how elephants are treated there. And then when you came back to the UK, you really advocated for elephants by asking the UK not to promote these holiday trips that exploit elephants. Can you share with us more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a very eye-opening trip. I do wonder if I'm ever going to get let back into India because I love that country. It's such a fascinating place. But like, that was the one time I went there to criticize their practices on elephants. But yeah, it was really heartbreaking. I mean, I'd never seen an elephant before, never met one, and they're amazing. Like, they're huge and they have this wisdom to them. And I just saw some really awful things. Like, I saw one elephant who was just standing in the baking heat. It's so hot, it's unbearable. And he was just standing and swaying, and the man who was leading us around, who was doing so at great risk to himself, he was like, oh yeah, that elephant's been there for 30 years. They only take him around during like religious festivals. That's the only time he ever gets to walk around. Otherwise he's just standing chained to the spot with nothing to do. And it's just it's really upsetting when you think about things like that. And he's probably still there. Like, they live a long time. And I saw some other ones. There was like elephants who were giving tours, rides to tourists, and the backs of their legs were so cut because they have these tools where they they not whip them, but they poke them, and they use this black paint to cover up the wounds so that tourists think that it's all fine and ethical. So I just saw so many horrible things. But I also saw how much the people were suffering. And like the mahouts, I think they're often demonized as these evil people, who just want to make these beautiful animals suffer. But they're so poor. They're very disadvantaged, very underprivileged. And that's something I've really learned, from doing activism over the years, is just that the more privileged you are, the more you're able to care about other people and other beings, the more compassion you have to go around. And if you're somebody who's really struggling to make ends meet, to provide for your family, if you're poor and if you're sick and all these things, your circle of compassion kind of has to get smaller. You can't care as much about animals and things like that. So that's how I think, they see them as just a source of income. They don't connect with them. They're not sensitized to their suffering. They don't feel their suffering because they can't. So I really came back from that trip being like, it's us in the West who are educated about these things, who should know better, and who can't just be like going along with things. Oh, I want to go on an elephant, and I'm rich and I'm here on my holiday, so I should get it. I think that's the price of being privileged, of being lucky, is that you have to go and explore those things in depth and question these things. So yeah, we came back and that, there was a lot of campaigns, and that's that charity that the charity that I went with is Save the Asian Elephants, and they're still doing that, still trying to get harder policies so that these websites like, TripAdvisor, I think they've taken it off by now, actually. But there's still some websites that market it to people, market elephant rides or selfies with tigers who've been drugged. And, it's not the people over there. It's not their fault. It's not these people in developing countries. It's not their fault. Yes, it's cruel, and yes, it's not thinking about the animals, but I think it's up to us to not fund that industry and to demand better places like sanctuaries and things, and to expect that. Yeah.
So you handed them there was a petition of over 200,000 signatures that you publicized. I think you handed it over to British authorities, perhaps?
We went to 10 Downing Street and handed in that petition. As of yet, there hasn't been any really hard policies passed yet. There's always, I talk to them and I find policy change so frustrating because it takes such a long time, and you hear something like, they're making sympathetic noises, and I'm always like, what are those noises? What, it takes such a long time. But I don't know. We're at a point where, yeah, the sympathetic noises are happening. People are trying to put this on the map. but I do think it's actually more effective if we get customers involved, like getting, campaigns to get them to remove it from TripAdvisor or other websites, that kind of thing. Because the governmental change is too slow. It's not happening at a rate that any animal rights activist could be satisfied with. But we still have to keep the pressure on, and there's a similar campaign, different, it's not wild animals, but that I was doing with Compassionate World Farming, where it's about ending the transport of live exports, these animals who are sent on these horrible journeys, days long, no food or water, and then they're killed at the end of it. And it's just like, it's not necessary. And that's been a campaign that's been running for years and years, and there's finally been some breakthroughs happening in that. But it takes a long time, it takes a lot of pressure, and I think we have to keep talking about it and sharing these things on social media and doing our best to educate people.
You are a big believer in the power of manifestation, I've learned, and you've posted something recently or somewhat recently on Instagram about just kind of feeling like frustrated and listless with it's hard to say, kind of manifestation. But how does it play a role in your life, and why have you been feeling kind of downtrodden by it lately?
Oh yeah, I love manifestation. Just visualizing who you want to be. It makes me hopeful. It's like a spiritual practice for me, really, because it gives me clarity on what really means something to me. Because I've actually had times where I've been trying to manifest something, and really working on it, really doing the affirmations, and then being like, oh, I actually don't really want this. I want something else. And then you let it go. But I think otherwise you can hold on to dreams for so long that are already dead, that you've grown out of. So it gives me that clarity over my life. And but I have found it difficult in the pandemic because everything's kind of frozen. There's just been various things I've been trying to make happen, like in my acting career, or I was trying to buy a house, and all of that has just been stalled. And I think I'm somebody who I've gotten quite used to visualizing it and putting it out there, and it would happen shortly after. And that's not how it works. Like, the universe does have other plans, and I think that's part of manifesting, that you have to learn to surrender. I think people sometimes get too carried away in thinking they can have anything they want in their timing and exactly as they planned it. But a huge part of manifestation is surrender and being like, I trust the universe, and something better is coming along, something that will be good for me and good for everyone. Yeah, I love it. It's so much fun as well.
Yeah, the timing is the part where I get hung up.
Yeah,
like, I think that you almost really can. I do, and I think, gosh, I feel like you really can do almost anything you set your heart to, but it's the timing that we don't have control over. So just surrendering to that, like you said.
Did you start visual?
Go ahead.
No, you're much more important than any comment I made.
No, what was I going to say? Well, just that I think I've found in lockdown it's been more helpful to break it down into smaller things. Like at the moment I'm working on a book, and I'm finding it really hard to visualize it being done and out in the world, because everything beyond like a week feels so far away and so unlikely. So I'm just kind of, at the moment, I'm like a chapter at a time, or even a page at a time, and that's something I can visualize. So I think that's important about visualization too, is that it's something you can believe in and something that makes you feel good. Whereas if I really do think about the book being completed, I'll just talk myself out of it. It won't be effective at all. It'll do the opposite.
I am right with you. I'm working on a memoir with a co-author, and we're just at the beginning of the journey, and I'm hyper focused on really sinking into enjoying this journey. If it makes it out there in the world, that'll be a whole nother manifestation, but it's like exciting to just stay right where we are. And I am committed to, I know there's going to be times that are hard and uncomfortable and all of those things, but I'm committed to enjoying even those aspects of it. Because otherwise, why really do something? of that magnitude, or just anything at all, you know,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not committed to the process of it, and you know, enjoying it and getting something out of it, because if you do, then I know that it will end up putting out for the world.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you're writing a book, like that's such a, like, it's not like it's just written in your head and it pours out of you. I think you have to experience. That's what I'm finding with writing mine. Like, you have to live it. It's not just transcribing. So yeah, I'm so with you on being in the moment for that. Hard though.
Yes.
Ivana, can you tell us more about your book, or do you prefer not to?
I can't at the moment because I think we're going to be announcing it soon. But yeah,
Oh, good.
I'll
Okay.
come back another time. I mean, I
Excellent.
just, and also I'm a bit precious about the writing process. Whereas I found at the start I was excited and I was like telling everyone, and then I found it was quite hard when I was going back to writing. It was like I'd added this level of pressure. I'd built it up even more. So yeah, now I'm like, I only have like 2 people who I share the actual content with. Yeah.
We respect that. Before we go, tell us about your podcast. It's called Chick Peeps, and
Love that
there are
name.
4 of you, and please tell us more about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I love doing it. So Chick Peeps, we started it in like 2017, and it was just actually because of doing activism. I just found that people kept, asking me to be interviewed, and I was talking to so many fascinating activists, and I find every vegan so interesting because it's such a counterculture decision. You really had to make that decision by yourself. And it's, maybe some people go vegan for others, but to stick at it, you have to have a real strong purpose and connection to it. So I just was, every time I would meet a new vegan, I wanted to hear their story and for them to share their wisdom and what helped them. And as I said, I had really great access to so many activists because they were interviewing me for their things, their magazines or their podcasts. So that's how we started. And I was on social media, I would post about my vegan lifestyle, and people were all like, but how do I do it? And how do I tell my parents? And just a million questions. And I was like, literally can't explain this in a post. Veganism is a journey, but I will try and do it in a podcast. So that's kind of the philosophy of the podcast, is that you can't just go vegan and that's it. You're always going to be questioning new things. Like, at the moment, there's a big discussion in our movement about the word Holocaust, which is triggering lots of interesting conversations, and people are fighting, unfortunately. But I think that's what these podcasts are for. We don't all agree on the way to liberate animals. We just agree on the fact that we want to. And so we have to have conversations about these things. So yeah, that's what it's for. And it's with 3 of my friends, and they all have like quite different like angles, things that they love. Like Tyler, my co-host, he's really hardcore, like angry punk vegan activist, and I'm much more like gentle and like friendly. And then Robbie's really into the nutrition and just food and getting nerdy about the health stuff. And Momo's like, she's really great on just collective liberation, on intersectional activism. So we all have our little things, and I find that just makes quite interesting conversations. Yeah.
Tune into Chick Peeps.
That's right.
You guys
Tune
have
in
another
there.
podcast now on your list.
You won an award for it's called the Lovey Award, which I find very apt for you, and it was for raising the bar for others in a position of fame to introduce new ideas to people that can truly change our world for the better. And Dotsie and I have recognized that in you really are changing the world for the better with all your beauty box, your podcast, your being so generous with interviews and doing PSAs for organizations like Mercy for Animals and PETA, your travels to places to learn more about the plight of animals. We just want to thank you as somebody in a position of such fame, and so many people follow you and emulate and admire you, that we're so happy that you're part of this movement.
Oh, that's so kind. That's really lovely of you to
well
say.
said.
And I'm so glad to be part of it. Honestly, my life has just opened up so much since going vegan. I really have like true friends and interesting people who I learn from around me. So it's so mutual. Like it doesn't feel like purely altruistic thing to be vegan. It doesn't feel like I'm giving of myself constantly. I'm constantly inspired and filled up by the people around me and people like you guys. So yeah, I know it's just a pleasure. And it was like, as I say, it was a missing piece of me going vegan, and I'm really happy I found it.
Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for your work and for spreading the message. Thank you.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.